waiting for lovely kings and queens to roll in Monday morning. It's 4 p.m. here, guys. 4:02 to be precise.
I think they may not be seeing your video, Azmarette.
I'm
well,
definitely.
Let me see. 1 second. Okay. Talk now.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. Let me just check real quick. How's your weekend?
It was, good. It was okay. Yeah, productive.
Let's see. Yeah, okay, we're good. Is your video showing?
Yeah. Okay. Cool. It might be a bit. Is it coming across with delays?
On my side, it looks okay. Say something again.
Yeah, I'm here. Bitcoin 1212.
Okay. They say it looks okay, so I guess it's okay.
Okay, perfect. Well, good morning, guys. Thank you very much for joining us for the market recap on Mondays. It's been a busy few weeks. I know some people are still recovering. I mean, if there's still people watching the Super Bowl, what was it, the 53rd one or something? If there's any football fans still tuned in, I'm sure you're, well, without getting into the politics or the sports of it, it's been, apparently one of the most, the most lowest scoring, or the most boring, from what I hear, that the New England Patriots had won. So, it's funny that with crypto though, Augur, even Super Bowl wasn't, a big enough event to attract a lot of betting on the crypto gambling platform, Augur. So it goes to show, I mean, it's partly due to the fact that people are boycotting the NFL, and with the Colin Kaepernick movement, I'm right with them as well. So yeah. Even with the crypto space, it hasn't really had the same effect as what it once thought it would be. So anyway, let's crack on and get with it. In the market at the moment, we're still in that area, aren't we? That 3,400, like, we're still bouncing around between that 3,000. 200, was it the lowest we had so far was 3,100, right? And there's still some bearish sentiments. Things hasn't, there hasn't been any major movements on the fundamental side. But I mean, there's always developments as we keep reporting. But one thing to note was the CBOE did decide to resubmit the Bitcoin ETF application. I mean, we're not going to get any decision anytime soon. And with the, partial government shutdown expected to resume if there's no agreement on February the 15th with the Democrats and Donald Trump, we're expecting more uncertainty regarding that area. But the fact that they've resubmitted it, this does give us an indication they'll be confident this time it will be approved, and there seems to be some consensus behind closed doors that there's some progress there, that in terms of where they are, they're on the same wavelength. So they wouldn't have submitted it, in my opinion, if they didn't think they had a chance of getting it approved. And the timing of it in particular, I thought perhaps they would have waited until the government shutdown either permanently ended or resumed on February the 15th to get a bit more clarity. But clearly they've been doing some talking behind closed doors and decided, okay, you know, this is a good time as any to put our resubmit our application. So here's the thing that was a bit concerning about the S.E.C that came out, though. They have, you know, to be fair, in their defense, they have given us a clue already. They did say that we're going to make cryptos a priority, especially for this year. And they have been building on that progress in terms of finding ways to inform their policy and reaching out to different stakeholders in the industry. But they are getting into the nitty gritty now. So the S.E.C has specifically now started to reach out to small and large businesses who can provide blockchain data. And this is all to help them formulate their policy in regards to cryptos, you know, in regards to monitoring risk and improving compliance. This is what, you know, some of us were worried about, that you know, it's good that they are having a good, they're showing some level of interest, and they're really wanting to understand the technology and why it's so useful, and not just to crack down on bad actors, but really to try and get a grasp of what makes this disruptive technology so special, even if it would be to their demise or detriment somehow. You know, this is something that they at least want to get clued up on, which, you know, that's a good thing in my opinion. At least be fully aware before you make long-reaching decisions that would impact investors across the states, and to some respect, some international investors as well. So the S.E.C is trying to find out the technical capability of these businesses, how they store these data, how they transfer them, what tools they're using, how they're applying processes and so on. Really the nitty gritty, the infrastructure, the things that make it click, that make it move, and why certain information will not be compromised, why it's immutable, why it's transparent, and those things it's going to try and find ways that it'll then incorporate into its own policy to see how they can, especially on the monitoring and enforcement side, they definitely need to find ways that they could try and stay 2 steps, 3 steps ahead, and perhaps use that knowledge of information to create even better you know, alternative methods and processes that they can have monopoly on, they can control. And that's the part that worries me. I am concerned about a potential future overreach, but that's something we're a long ways off for now. But the fact that they're taking the steps is not just, I feel it's not just to learn about the technical aspect of it, but really how they can try and get ahead of this thing so they can have as much influence and control over it. So that's another thing that they did point out that they will do, and we're seeing that in action. Despite the government shutdown, they're still going ahead behind closed doors, doing whatever they can to move forward and still reach out to relevant parties that can help them you know, shape their policies to come. So that is something to watch for. I mean, this specifically is to conduct this market research into blockchain, especially the popular ones. They did mention that something's gone my eye, excuse me. Yeah, they're going to use that to their advantage. And I think that is, that's going to be, if they use this wisely, to say what they'll, you know, that actually will follow through and find ways to protect the investor, and also blockchains, and also projects and individuals. If that's really to protect the industry, I mean, to be part of the, you know, part of the solution in order to provide more legitimacy, and if it results in less scams, less breaches in exchanges, that could be construed as a good thing. But again, I do worry about their real intentions long term, to try and regulate the space, and perhaps use that power to then follow certain individuals, powerful individuals that are against the government or against the S.E.C, powerful individuals or groups of people that help to empower the many, the ordinary Joes, and if they're not especially if they're not reporting their taxes, or they're using that to do other things which they may, it may put banks out of business, or a high profile people in a financial world out of business, if it's put in what they're called PACs, political committees, these lobbies funded by big pharma, big animal agriculture. There's all sorts of things that could happen, that a lot of the pressure could be coming from big players to get the S.E.C to step in, and once they have the monitoring tools in place. See, this is the part that does worry me, which I'm going to mention before I forget. So they this is the part where I knew, I'm like, oh, alarm bells are ringing already. So the agents, S.E.C wants they want the ability to identify the owners of the wallet addresses for multiple currencies, multiple cryptos. And they say this is in order to bring transparency to the market. Now, this is what I'm fearing, because if they're part of the reason why Bitcoin or other cryptos, there was a certain level of anonymity, unless you go on and use the privacy coins like Monero, Zcash, and so on. But this was my concern. One of my main concerns is that will they use this information at a later stage to spy, in essence. I already have. I mean, some people may have watched a lot of FBI, the crime series on the financial crimes, and there's always like what do you call it? TV programs. Sometimes you get it on Fox, or what is it, CBS, and other TV channels, MBS or whatever, NBC, I should say. And you have the movies as well. That they're trying to track the baddies, but they're also like, you have some that show worst case scenario with different regulatory bodies that might have a bit of corruption or collusion, go at least some level of inequality in the space where it's not as fully compliant as they say it is, and so on. Now, in terms of investor protection, that is always, I mean, crypto space, traditional markets, regardless of where you look, some level of protection, some level of awareness of the security arrangements and so on. That is important. I think just understanding and having that knowledge is important. It's always a good thing, regardless of which side you're on. But what do you do with that power and knowledge? That's the question we're going to be seeing. And to whose benefit will this be? Who will they be really looking after? So we will know that we will have clues, and we'll understand more of this as we see. Part of the indications that we're getting is how they're moving at the moment, what actions they're taking. And so right now they're beefing up not only their knowledge and awareness, but really this processes, the monitoring tools in particular, that's and enforcement tools. That's something that they're going to be working on over the years to come. And we will hopefully get more clarity as time goes by, and they seek to find a balance that would work, make sure there's investor protection, but also ensure that they don't try and stifle innovation, which is one of the major concerns of the government, any regulatory body or departments getting involved, and impeding progress and innovation for Americans, especially where the future is concerned. They still want to have some sort of competitive advantage where technology revolutions and developments are concerned. But this is why it's still a gray area. They're still trying to find their way through this, and once they do, we're able to get more clarity from them and more what the market will perceive as a bit more stability as well being added. And so this, the responses that they've asked these blockchain data companies, that they provide them that information by the 14th of February. That's, what is it, Valentine's Day? That's only 10 days away, right? So not a very long period of time. And it's interesting to the timing as well, because the partial government shutdown, I believe, we're expected to get a decision from Donald Trump on the 15th, the very next day. I'm surprised that they didn't ask for more time, I mean, to give a longer extension, since I'm assuming the data, the information that they will get and the continued collaboration would take a bit, this is an ongoing thing. But the fact that they've given that specific deadline as well, that to me tells me that they're working behind, they do have a schedule, but they're also working to try and get, to try and make some further moves, and be able to be, what was it? Some of the decisions that will be regarding crypto that will be given, it'll also depend on some of the information that they can find from different stakeholders, and how quick they can move will also depend on the government shutdown situation as well. So several things to look out for, and the fact that they've made this priority, again, not a surprise, but the fact that they're going after data now from blockchains to study and monitor the transactions, the processes, every part of it, so they can figure out how to create their policies regarding cryptos. That's something which, in a way, that does give confidence to the market, because we're going to be moving from this gray area where there's uncertainty, and it will also give confidence to the institutional investors in particular to decide if they're going to start to make a move. Now, I'm going to mention a few things in a moment from Pantera, the CEO of Pantera Capital, and Mike Novogratz as well, CEO of Galaxy Holdings. That was, some of their comments was interesting, and it does make me think now there's a bit of a push to get some clarity in the market within the next few months. And here's the thing though, with the S.E.C, until they get that classification sorted, the fact that there's some bills waiting to be approved or rejected, and to be the definition of cryptos, definition of securities, whether cryptos will be getting their own definitions and treatments, and it said it should, because the S.E.C was the how we test the security, the bill relating the the legislation regarding securities needs to be updated to include a brand new asset class, and that has to be put into consideration as well. And I agree with that. If they're going to write new laws and put regulations in place, it has to be up to date, it has to be relevant to the industry, and that's why I completely agree. This currently, the legislation that we see is not fit for purpose, and not really fair to apply on cryptos because of the way the asset class works, but also how it's being treated by different stakeholders. So it should have, if it has to have legislation against it, laws passed to govern its compliance aspect of it, then by all means it needs to be on a collaborative approach. So if they're getting this information from blockchain data providers and projects, ICOs, individuals, you name it, if at the very least, we'll know that it'll be based on information that can be verified, and we know that actually makes sense. But if it was just simply a rejection, or and based on assumptions and based on ignorance about cryptos, then that would have been a lot worse for everyone concerned. So, you know, in order to try and increase compliance, it's best if they can try and understand the, you know, what is the incentive for the different stakeholders in the industry. Once they understand that, once they understand the motivations for that, and why certain things work, then, you know, they're more like, I think they're more likely to succeed in that respect. So this proper classification of the tokens issued by blockchain projects, whether they fall under securities or not, that has to be cleared up, and also how they're going to be treated moving forward. That without that, I don't see how the industry will, especially if they're building all sorts of institutional grade solutions for in anticipation for them to come in. Without that clarification, I don't feel like there's going to be the anticipated you know, a flow of capital from that particular sector, that particular group of people, and that's what they're waiting for. One of the big linchpin, one of the big you know, pillars of this is definitely regulation, and until they get that right, when I don't see how we're going to be moving forward in the big scheme of things. And so there is a loophole, however, for ICOs. If they're going to launch their projects in the US, they would only have to accept accredited investors rather than the general public. And I think over 300 ICOs were approved last year by the S.E.C. So there is a way right now, but whether that's going to be closed, and whether there's going to be other pathways to get ICOs. I think ICOs will completely have to change in how they operate moving forward, because the way things are right now, there's still a lot of uncertainty and a lot of suspicion, and also the fact that the S.E.C is auditing these ICOs going back. There's caseloads waiting to be gone through. Literally, I'm expecting to hear more and more projects being chased by the S.E.C, especially like the low-hanging fruit is what they've been going with. But as they dedicate more man hours, more effort, more resources, time, and so on, to go through and see which ones are considered as securities by, you know, the current law, but by the current regulation, legislation. You know, that's something what they're going to have their hands full right now with the government shutdown. It's not possible, but this year they will continue to make it a priority. So yeah, so ICOs right now are going through a period of introspection, and also cleaning, basically making sure their affairs are in order and cleaning house right now. If they're not scams, they have nothing to be afraid of, and just waiting for S.E.C to get that, you know, clarity regarding securities and how they treat cryptos is going to be fundamental to whether they end up existing or not long term, especially in the States. So that's the S.E.C. Now, there's been individuals that have always come out in support of Bitcoin and crypto, and you know, it always makes the news because they are people of influence and credibility. And now the CEO of Pantera Capital, Jack Dorsey, he said that basically the fundamentals right now of the crypto space, the blockchain space, are actually stronger than when we had the bear market of 2014 and 2015. Because I mean that seems like a long way off now. My God, what was it? 4 years ago now? 2000, what we now 2004, and yeah, 4 to 5 years ago. In the space, so much. I got, like, literally in the last month, in the last year alone, there's been, like, it's broken records to the number of collective developments has happened. But if you're taking it way back then, he's absolutely right. There has been so much that's been built. Remember, it's not just the money that's poured in, it's the infrastructure in many ways. It's also the increased knowledge and awareness, the fact that it's starting to permeate in the bigger cultural areas and society. And the fact that the network effect is far larger now, and the number of transactions have gone up regarding especially with with the Lightning Network on the scene. The number of payment gateways has increased. The number of ID verified wallets has increased despite the bear market. Physical crypto ATMs are widespread. There's 5 and more every day on average being installed somewhere in the world, 5 every day. And big names like Coinstar, where you put your spare change in, they're also piloting and expanding. So there's so many things that we're seeing on the ground, and on even in the normal everyday world, like people are engaged in it to some level, whether they use it or not, it doesn't matter. But there's some level of awareness and engagement that has changed from 2014, when barely anyone knew it. So all these big multinational companies, organizations, NGOs, non-for-profit companies, organizations, and groups. There's initiatives trying to tackle the big challenges like climate change, poverty, and so on. And they've been using, they've been doing test pilots with different cryptos, and seeing if there's any way they can increase their efficiencies, and any advantages that they can get from this new technology. They've been using it, they've been applying it, or at the very least coming up with a policy towards it, or a stance. So there's so much has happened since 2014. Looking at the price is not going to be enough in this space, at least. And he went even further. He said that this is Bitcoin is considered the money of the internet, the currency of the internet, because it was tested on the internet, it was created on the internet, developed on the internet, and this, the decentralized aspects of it, the principles behind it, the people, the community that have engaged and helped it to grow, and from one project, one coin spur over 2,000, even if some of them have, even if they don't have real world use case, the fact that there's all these different ideas and different programmers, developers, engineers coming into the space and working on different problems and solutions, and even people just coming to take advantage of just to speculate and hit and run, make quick buck. That shows you, like, whenever there's some big shift happening, a big movement of value, of ideas, and different types of exchanges happening, then it's something which no one, some people may try, or they, put a lot of effort into ignoring it. But like we see with the technology adoption cycle, at some point you're going to hear about it and you're probably going to end up using using it, either because you have no choice or because everyone else is, or there's some sort of advantage, some sort of usefulness to you, because we've seen it with the mobile phones, we've seen it with laptops. Eventually we all had to get one because that's just the way things are. It's just more efficient and a lot of advantages than the previous old school models. So just the way things are going right now, it's almost as if, because it has been through these bear markets several times, it has been tested, and for him to say that, there's a lot of people with influence in the space, but it's very true. You compare that in 2014, 2015 bear market, I'm trying to think, I wasn't even aware of in 2014 of Bitcoin. So I know there must be a great deal of even engineers and developers that have created a lot of incredible projects. Now they weren't even aware around that time of Bitcoin or cryptos. So that goes to tell you, within a short period of time, on the foundation, that whatever's been from 2008 up until 2015, the foundation that was laid at that point still had value. All the mistakes, all the scandals, Mt. Gox, all of that happened and actually helped to make this space stronger in 2019. And that journey is invaluable. And so, but in particular with Dorsey's project with Square Cash, the fact that he also has Bitcoin integrated, of course, some of us may be skeptical and think, okay, well, of course it would make sense for him to shill Bitcoin, to talk up the prospects of it and so on. But if you look at the numbers, the fact is true that it is actually helping, even with Square Cash, even with other apps that do have cryptos integrated, one way or another, some way, shape or form, is actually been helping, getting some millennials into the industry for the first time. And it's there's a big generational shift happening between the millennials, who are absolutely like, they don't even know what the dial-up days were like in the 90s. Some of them weren't even born during that time, right? So of course they've come into that, they're already used to having all this this lifestyle where it affords them more convenience. Things are quicker, easier, instant. Online is digital. They didn't have to suffer like the people from who were born in the 70s, 80s. They are a new generation. So that is true. A lot of the adoption that's happening of the new technology that's coming out is second nature to them. So this is something, he's absolutely right with that. It is far more stronger. A lot of people are more aware. And what's important to note is that historically, institutional investors take longer to move into a new asset class, or a new area, with technology, because it's so disruptive. And if you look at the venture capitalists, look at what they've done, they've always mentioned that in that industry in particular is so, it's only for people that have a particular mindset. Because imagine, out of 10 projects, you're going to have to expect between anywhere from 6 to 9 or even 10 failing out of 10 projects. But the one that does come out, it becomes an Uber. The one that comes out will be an Airbnb. It will end up being a superstar, the crown jewel. And that will make up for all of the failures and losses that, you would have, suffered. So that's why they're saying that this technology, that's why VCs have been looking at ICOs with concern. And now that it's, that area is more immature, and you have regulators like the S.E.C getting involved and trying to, clean it up a bit and make it more, safer for investors and whatnot. That's going to bring confidence to a lot of these projects out there, and also to investors that look to have the ones that do want regulations in place. They're definitely going to see that as a good sign, as a space that's more legitimate, more mature, and so on. But another thing to notice, though, is they're doing this on purpose. They're taking their time, their sweet time, the institutional investors, but they're actually, if you look behind closed doors, look at the actions that they're taking, they're already setting themselves up, they're preparing themselves to take advantage of any developments that occur. They're going to be one of the first together. So, these non-brats and other people saying there's a problem going on, they realize that collaboration.
Hey, Esmerette. I think there might be a small problem with your audio. You were sounding great, but then the audio kind of went faint.
Okay, can you hear me now?
You're coming in slowly.
Okay. Any better now?
I'm hearing you better now.
Okay, I'm closer to the microphone now. If yeah, okay.
Yeah, much better. Much.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So what was I going to say? Yeah. And here's another thing that they mentioned, which was really important. I mentioned this with the asset allocation class last year, and also very recently as well, that with Pantera Capital in particular, they mentioned and they confirmed that they do think 5 to 10 years ahead in terms of investing and looking at the positions that would do well over a period of time, which is a classic investment principle. And they have been looking at the price action, they've been looking at the market cycles and whatnot, but they're literally looking at what's going on the ground, what's being built, all these developments happening, and investing for the long term. And a lot of the decisions being made are not just a short term. That separates them from the short term speculators and traders. But the amount of capital coming into that's assumed will come into the market. These are people that are looking to invest long term. So, what's important for them as well, institutional investors, is that they want custodians that are well known and well regulated in the space because of its nature, though the volatile nature, the fact that it's also full of security breaches. Until they have insurances in place, strong custodial solutions in place, and then they're probably more likely to go in with existing big names. If there's a gateway, a bridge, or trading desk with the existing traditional financial houses like Nomura, like Goldman Sachs, and so on, they're more likely to take that a lot more seriously than an independent one. So you're going to get a lot of people, and they legitimately so, rightly so, being skeptical of certain parts of the technology or the way things are right now, because there's still issues with scams and exchange breaches and so on, other issues as well I'm not going to get into, but you have to remember, look at the people who's saying that. These are some of the biggest naysayers are actually legacy banks, financial institutions. And if you're looking at what they're doing behind closed doors and looking at the number of blockchain patents that they've been putting in, that why would they be saying that if they don't believe there's going to be some sort of advantage to be had, or financial, some monetary gain to be had? So the truth is, they are going to have to diversify. There's no two ways about it.
Hey, Asmaret. I think we lost you again. Do you want me to just, you want to take a break and have me take a look at some charts while you try to get that worked out?
Yes, please. Yeah.
All right, no problem.
Thank you. Charts.
No problem.
Tell me when it gets better.
You sound great now. You just came back, but
you go ahead with the charts. I would love to see the breakdown.
All right, 1 second.
Sure. So yeah, and then what's I gonna say? Yeah, so Binance as well thinks that Amazon is going to create their own cryptos as well, which I'll explain a bit.
Here, let me share. You sound great right now, but let me just go ahead and share this real quick since I got it pulled up.
Yeah, please. Yes, please go ahead.
I thought I was ready, but I wasn't. Let me close this out.
Charts.
Where am I at?
Charts.
All right, can you see my chart?
Yep.
All right, so this is the Bitcoin index, and basically, let me just move this out the way. If I could actually. Okay, so basically, this is the Bitcoin index on a monthly chart to kind of give people an idea of how we're looking at long-term trajectory-wise. So this blue line right here is what I'm looking at as the main uptrend for Bitcoin. And obviously, we've had an uptrend for a while on Bitcoin. So we had our first pop here back in July 2011, came back down to the uptrend. We popped again to the height of December 2013. We came back down to the uptrend. Then we popped all the way again into 2017. But what's different this time is that instead of bouncing from this uptrend, we actually broke the uptrend. So this red line is what I see as the descending slope, the descending trend line. So for me, the only way that I see Bitcoin being bullish, long-term bullish, is that break this descending trend line. So this trend line can go down as far as $1,200 and go as far down as $200. I don't know how far this trend line is going to drop. So there's some confluences you can try to put together to get some pretty accurate guesses. Some people may see this as a head and shoulders pattern. That's one way to look at it. You could take a look at your Fibonacci's extension tools and get an idea from there. You can look at some Elliott waves. You get an idea to get a wave count and see how far you're going to drop. But ultimately, what matters is that when we're going to be long-term bullish. So for me, looking at this red trend line, that's the descending slope. Until we break there, a lot of things can happen. We could pop up a little bit in here. We could find support and pop. But as far as like long-term buying Bitcoin and holding it, the only way that I see that as being possible is, when I say possible, meaning equitable or lucrative, the highest probability of Bitcoin being long-term bullish is after this trend line is broken. So ideally, what I would like to see is something along these lines, where, like, if this is the monthly time frame. So this is a bearish engulfing candle right here, and then we had two bearish candles right here that are both reversal candles to indicate that we're selling more. So over the next few months, Bitcoin and crypto in general, minus the exceptions and the outliers, it still looks pretty bearish. I would probably say 6 to 8 months minimum of bearish activity. I'm not calling a bottom, But if I had to call a bottom, I would say right around $1,200. That's where the bottom would be. At $1,200, we have a lot of support right here from back in November 2013 when Bitcoin tested this high and then went parabolic. So over here is where I think Bitcoin is going to find some support and then ultimately make its way back up to make new highs. So that's where I see. I don't think Bitcoin, just with the technology from the fundamental perspective and how far it's developed, is going to drop further than $1,200, $1,000. But if it were to drop below $1,000, meaning close on a monthly chart below $1,200, then my next target on it would be $250 for Bitcoin. So right now,
Wow.
right now the bears are in full control of price as far as where Bitcoin is moving. And you can look at these as how should I say, more like a evolution of Bitcoin. You know, from $30 to $200, from this bracket to this bracket, that was a huge development for Bitcoin. From 200 to 1,300, a huge development. And then 2017, things just went crazy from 1,200 to 20,000. So I think the correction we're actually only 3 months into the actual correction. As crazy as that sounds, like we corrected here. Well, let me rephrase that. We corrected here for the last year. All of this was correction. But as far as actually being the bear market, as far as being a bear cycle, like technically not until you broke this main uptrend did price really turn bearish. Everything before that was just a correction. Now we're actually bearish. So I think we have a lot more bearish activity to see. The last time we made this big run up, we was bullish for about 3 years or so. This activity right here was from this pullback to this run up was bullish for about 2 years and change. We're bearish here for about 2 years. So we could very well be bearish here for about 2 to 3 years. I mean, that would make sense. We got way down here. Yeah, so this thing could stretch out. It could really stretch out. I mean, we could be bearish for the next, and it's not to say that we're not going to see pops and not going to see bounces in the market where you can take, you know, opportunities to buy. But when you look at a monthly chart, I mean, you can make an argument that we can be bearish for the next, you know, 2 years, really, coming all the way down to $1,200. We could hang around the $1,200 to $2,500 range for a while before we make our way back up to new highs. So that's what I'm looking for from a long-term perspective. I'm looking for this red line to get broken. Maybe I get in at 1,200, maybe I get in at 1,500, maybe I get in at 2,000, maybe I get in at 2,500. Wherever this red line breaks, that's where I'm interested in. And mind you, the red line could break and then do something like this and then just roll over. So it's not like if it breaks the red line, it has to go bullish. But it's a very high probability, in my view, that if we have some strong support around this $1,200 range, we have the main trend line breaking around the, you know, anywhere from the 2,300 to 1,200, somewhere around there in that range. It's a very good probability that we're going to at least attempt making a new high. So from the technical perspective, I'm not, you know, I'm just waiting. You know, we're kind of pulling straws right now. You know, it's like, if you believe the way that I believe that Bitcoin is going to be a 6-figure coin within the next 10 years, 7-figure coin within the next 20 years, then, you know, what are we really talking about? You know, so I'm still buying and accumulating Bitcoin because I believe in it for the next 20 years. That's just me. So, you know, I'm not really stressing about it. But when you do look at the technicals on it, you know, it can go a couple of different ways and this thing could extend out. But I think the most probable outcome is the one that I mentioned at first, where we continue to sell down, find some support. I think we'll I think we'll actually do something like this. When we get down below, let's say like 2,500, that's a good solid number that a lot of people are watching for. So if we get below 2,500, I think we'll break down to 12, retest 2,000, 2,300, somewhere around here, come back down, retest those lows, maybe 1,500, and then work our way back up. That would be, you know, ideal. So that's what I'm waiting for. I'm just waiting for some, not necessarily waiting, but that's when things will really get excited. And as you can see, whenever we broke these downtrend slopes, things heated up within a few months. I mean, we broke this slope back in June of 2015, and within 1, 2, 3, 4 months, we were going crazy. Same thing over here. When we broke that downtrend slope, this was a slope-ish right here. You know, 1, 2, 3, 4 months, we end up going crazy. You know, we had a little pennant right there. And then what happened? We broke the slope, consolidated for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months, and then we went nuts. So that's what I would anticipate. I would anticipate for it to break the slope, you know, and maybe do something very similar, consolidate for a few months after we break the slope, and then do something like that, consolidate within here after we break the slope, and then work our way up. That'd be pretty cool. So yeah, I think you know, great things are coming in crypto. I think a lot's reason to be optimistic. It's just all about timing. And right now, I mean, the bears are still in full control of this move, but yeah, I think their move is going to expire. I think like 2 years in cryptocurrency is like 20 years in another market. You know, so things can move really fast. I mean, but when you put things in perspective, guys, it's like we've been bullish for like 10 years. You know, it's like we've just been bullish the entire time. If you really look at it, we just shot up and just kept going up. So since 2011, we're in 2019. So this shows me 2010. We're in 2019. So let's just say 10 years to make things fun. So like we've been bullish for the last 10 years. For us to have a year, 2 years of bearish activity, it's really not that big of a deal. I don't think that's that big of a deal, especially considering like the percentile move up. I mean, went from 0 to hero. I mean, went from $1, a few pennies, to $20,000. So if we come back to 1,000, come back to 2,000, I don't think there's anything to really be pressed about or worried about. I think that's pretty healthy, pretty normal. And I think Bitcoin will rise again. So that's just my outlook on it. But you sound great now, so I'll let you close this thing up.
No worries. And thank you for that analysis. Yeah, you're pretty much spot on. You've made these calls from way back. I've lost track of how many times you've been trying to warn us that Bitcoin was falling. And it sounded crazy when you said it at the time, but yeah, it's come to pass. So now the market does like, we're jaded basically. Where even if it does go to 2,500 or even 1,000, it's almost like there's an air of expectation. Like, how low will it go? They're bracing themselves for the potential collapse of it, but they are expecting, there is consensus that they're expecting the market to recover. This is just a cycle, and yeah, it will go on to create all-time highs and even more adoption in the space. And speaking of adoption and infrastructure, Binance did decide to accept credit cards. So now they allow credit card purchases of free cryptos to, on their platform, but they do charge a $10 fee or a 1.5% fee, whichever is higher. And it's simplex. It's only available to American users, from what I understand. So, with more and more payment platforms and integration happening, and being able to allow different ways for people to accumulate cryptos, I definitely think that will help increase long-term adoption. And it's interesting that the Binance CEO also said, Changpeng Zhao, did say that he thinks Amazon is going to create their own cryptocurrency sooner or later. He tweeted this last Saturday. I mean, we do get a lot of different influential people in the crypto space tweeting, or they're either in, crypto conferences stating their views and positions and whatnot. But for him to say that right now in particular, it does tell me that because if you remember just a few weeks ago with Overstock announcing an even more ways to integrate into cryptos. In fact, if we're talking about Overstock, I believe they're the first online retailer to you guys, we don't have them here in the UK, but you guys buy them for furniture and things like that. And the fact that they integrated Bitcoin all the way back in 2014. And it's also around the same time that Amazon was asked if they were going to come out with their own crypto. At that time, they did do market research with their customers to see if it was something that they'd want as a payment option. And they didn't. That's the official reason they gave anyway, Amazon, that their customers, simply didn't want it at that time. But like I said, as 2019, the crypto sphere, it looks a lot different for not just investors, but online retailers, e-commerce businesses. It's a game changer, because this is something that will allow them to acquire even more consumers on a global level, with features and advantages and benefits that would work for all sides. And part of that is the fact that it's easier, faster, it's cheaper. In terms, if you look at the budget, the amount of money they have to throw just to have different payment, not just different payment gateways, but really the marketing behind it, the people that they have to put, and also, if something goes wrong, the liability aspect of it, compliance, making sure that they're legal, they're doing things correctly. All of that does have costs, but with cryptos, it's actually less. And it's proven, there's been other online retailers that have accepted cryptos, and it's working perfectly for them. And the fact that there's less paperwork and traditional payment gateways, it does rely on third-party, people to be there and help facilitate. And that means they take a cut from there. So the fact that they can bypass that, again, one of the fundamental, advantages of cryptos, bypassing third-party, intermediaries, and the fact that this is on a global scale, no boundary, regarding geography and so on. It's something that we're going to see more online retailers, and the big ones in particular, they're either busy working on their own crypto, or they're going to collaborate with an existing partner or user, accept current cryptos, that the main ones such as Bitcoin, Ripple, Ethers and whatnot, and Tron, or and any of the ones that they feel would work with their systems, and it's cheaper for them, quicker for them and whatnot. The fact that Jeff Bezos is going to, we're speculating right now, but if he does come out with some way, shape or form, some involvement with the crypto space, you heard it here, okay? It will be the catalyst for a mass adoption to happen in the retail space. And then with that, it will have a ripple effect on other type of businesses as well. Even the ones that usually have a brick and mortar, they have a website as well, or some sort of online presence, which is a necessity in this day and age. That's actually gonna spark a lot of optimism in the space, but also the fact that here is an actual practical practical way for people to be able to do their shopping, purchase things, and to be able to use cryptos for that. Again, making it easier for people to integrate it into their everyday lives. That is going to be one of the biggest keys, one of the biggest crucial developments to watch. It will literally, I believe, at least from what I'm seeing, that this will facilitate that mass adoption, that opening the floodgates sort of movement that we're looking for, and not just with regulations aspect of it, but what's happening on the ground to make it easier for everyday people to adopt it, to use it, and minimize the problems with the volatility, with some transactions being too slow. And that's one of the things that they're tackling right now. So to be at least on Visa, MasterCard's level of scalability, where they can handle millions of transactions per second, per minute, that would be something that has to happen before you can really truly upscale it and take it on a bigger level, on a bigger scale. So the fact that Amazon as well, they had partners that they were working with, and they got patents regarding cryptography and distributed data storage solutions, as well as data marketplace. Now that would mean it would allow it would allow Amazon to create to integrate crypto payments into its own shopping platform and mechanisms, but it would also allow them to find. Remember, one of the reasons why Amazon was so successful is they got great at leveraging technology, great at leveraging different processes. Some of it they had to completely recreate. They had to create from scratch. So crypto seems like a natural fit. And for me, they're waiting for the right moment, either to collaborate, accept existing cryptos, collaborate with crypto partnerships to come out with some sort of crypto, or they will literally, because of the vast, purchasing power, the vast economies of scale, the vast client base they have, and the reach and scale and influence they have, and they are also another $1 trillion. They hit the $1 trillion mark. They're definitely going to be finding ways to integrate cryptos. So they're just waiting. And just because there's no news at the moment regarding Amazon doesn't mean that they're not creating something in the background. Because it would be too good for them to just leave it out, and that's why they're staying quiet right now. But they have been watching Overstock very closely, looking at how Overstock is a very early adopter. As I said before, this year they created the Coinbase. They had an announcement to accept Bitcoin as well in payment in particular for furnitures, rugs, home improvement, kitchen appliances and whatnot. So the fact that they've allowed that to happen, that is something that Amazon and other online retailers are watching. And some people are not waiting for Amazon to get in the game. They're already going ahead and buying Amazon shares or buying shares in other online retailers in anticipation at some point they will adopt cryptos as a payment method. And on another aspect as well, there was a Canadian exchange, Quadriga S.E.C, that filed for bankruptcy because the CEO had died, and unfortunately the password, he was the only one that had had kept the password encrypted, and he didn't give copies. It wasn't multi-signatory or whatever. He was the only one with the the password to one of the cold wallets that had held literally hundreds of millions of dollars worth. In this particular case, $190 million cannot be paid because the CEO had not left a copy of the password, or some mechanism where on his death, accidental or otherwise, there wasn't a mechanism, or even in a will or whatever, he didn't have some sort of legal protection in place for him to be able to have that given to the other company managers or owners. And that is people's money. That is really scary, because if you don't have backup of some sort, now his security is great, but the fact that he was the sole owner of and knowledge of this particular cold storage wallet, and the password wasn't kept somewhere in, perhaps in a safe, or banking safe, or whatever. There's no preparation just in case. This is really surprising, and now I hope other exchanges take note of this and make sure that that no one person, even if they're the founder or creator, that they solely don't just have the having a password is fine, but if there isn't another way to access in case of emergency to the account, and have mechanisms, legal some sort of legal protection, so you're not in danger of being sabotaged internally and whatnot, or even from the outside, or being hacked. But the fact that now customers are struggling to get access to their own money because of someone's untimely death is I feel like it's a massive oversight. It really shouldn't have. You just, as a business, as an exchange, dealing with all these all the manner of not just cryptos, but also the data that they hold. All of that has to be treated separately and securely, and with a degree of not expectation that people will die, but just in case something happens, like a death, like an act of God, like any number of legal definitions you'd find in insurance policies, that it would be, if this happened, then this would perhaps they should have a smart contract based agreements in place, so only then something will be accessible, because we are talking about people's money and data here. So that is such a shame. I hope other exchanges learn from that. Another worrying thing, guys, if you use Cryptopia, be careful. I have used Cryptopia before, but not anywhere recently, especially not in the last year. They have been hacked again. The hackers illegally took another $3.2 million over the course of a 24-hour period. And the fact that it's happened the second time now, I mean, that to me is a no-no for now. So I mean, do what you want. If you want to use Cryptopia, by all means, this is completely up to you. But me personally, I'm staying away from Cryptopia for now until they have that security issue resolved, and that there's insurances or some sort of legal protection in place, so that doesn't happen again. Alternative robust methods in place to avoid things like that happening again. So wanted to mention that, give you a heads up. South Korea this week as well, they've continued to uphold their ban against ICOs, even though what was strange is that Parliament did actually legalize them before, because the projects were actually moving to other jurisdictions to avoid that sanction, but they had changed their mind. But in September 2017, the regulator decided to ban them altogether, following with the example of China with ICOs. So, that is something I wanted to make you aware of. Also, a European digital publisher started accepting Stellar in terms of helping to, remember I've been talking about anything that can help drive increase adoption in the space, anything that will allow people to make, even it doesn't even have to be like a major project. Just the fact that you have more and more cryptos being accepted by different projects, different partnerships, different people in the business, and even in different industries. That again is a sign, is a positive sign that even despite the bear market, people are still building on methods and gateways to allow that to happen, and make it more convenient for people to pay for goods and services. Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates are testing their own cryptocurrencies as well for cross-border payments. Right now, it's just their central and local banks doing it. But if you remember what I said about Iran recently, they've launched their own cryptocurrencies, but that was to evade sanctions and evade the US. Because they are locked out of the SWIFT payment system, the banking, global banking financial settlement system. So that is something that I'm expecting, especially with the volatile, that particular region is incredibly especially with the Yemen crisis, and the UAE and Saudi Arabia obviously are backing the government in Yemen, and that is something that I feel we're going to see more and more of not just Arab countries, but a lot of jurisdictions and countries like like Iran, Russia, Venezuela, different areas looking to Gibraltar, Malta, and so on, Singapore, looking to find ways that they can create their own ecosystems and find ways to it's not just for the political aspect, but more for the financial accessibility, and the fact it's less money, especially with the examples we've seen with Ripple, the success it's had with the partnerships. It's also been working with the Arab countries to be able to find mechanisms and ways they can save money on sending billions of dollars worth of value across the nations, and being able to facilitate that. I mean, the fact that they want control, have their own version, that is going to be, we're going to see more and more of that. And for that, if they can get more control over their any methods, any processes and infrastructure that will allow them to have the value contained within their own region, within their hubs, that's actually going to also help to shift some level of power as well. So essentially what all these countries are trying to do is not just reduce their reliance and dependency on the Western nations, but try and find ways that will help them to reduce costs as well, time efficiencies as well, increase the time it takes. Sometimes it takes days, hours to facilitate some of these transactions. It's now coming down to seconds, even minutes. So and anything that can cut down on paper usage as well, because some of them still use legacy systems. So again, operational aspect of it, it definitely works for them. So they're doing more and more of these tests. And actually, especially with the UAE, is being known, even with the Saudi, actually, they've been, I think they had something called Vision 2020. And also UAE, they have been well known and well regarded in the area for being reformers and visionaries where technology is concerned. That obviously Dubai is a hub, in that strategic hub in that area, and they want to be at the forefront of blockchain technology, and finding ways to make cryptocurrencies work for them as well. That we're definitely going to continue to see at some point. Even with the Israeli-Palestinian issue, I definitely feel at some point the Palestinian Authority may jump onto cryptos to evade some of the sanctions placed against them from the Israelis and US and other nations. So this is a big trend that's happening with countries like Iran, like Russia. First of all, with the political aspect of it, and then you have the financial aspect of it as well. So yeah, so this what was I going to say? So yeah, this cross-border payments developments, it's not just going to be with Ripple. I feel that other countries, there will be policies that will come out to help navigate that area, and find something that they can adapt to their markets that will be useful for them and their own people. And Venezuela, obviously, with what we've been seeing with the transition in power, it hasn't been exactly smooth. And with the petro not being, looking at it from a point of view, well, depending who you are, but with Maduro's party, they've been trying to force it down on people, and really the opposition party are not a fan of that. They think it's a ruse to do stuff that is, basically corrupt and not really helpful for the people or the economy. So that their policy is changing regarding that. Now, there was another thing that came out as well, that there was a anonymous trader. He made $200 million off Ethereum, trading Ethereum, and he wants to remain anonymous so authorities don't track him. Now, he was asked several questions, and one of the interesting things he mentioned was that the crypto bear market won't last. Now, he did point out to Bitcoin halvening, which we mentioned before, May 2020. The price of Bitcoin is expected to go up because historically it does. From the miners' perspective, they look at what what the future value will be, and they expect that to appreciate, because it in May 2020 it's expected for the reward, the Bitcoin block, to go from 12.5 to 6.25, and that there's going to be, over time, miners will rely more and more on transaction fees to get their profits. Now, the fact that he said that as well, and that he's also noticed that there's been developments in the ground, the increased infrastructure, and that some of the movements being made in the market, that is getting ready to wrap up the bear market. And I do wonder, though, what's his motivation to say this right now? Is it going to help him, with people speculating and coming on board? But some of the things that he said, actually, it ties in with what the major consensus is around the industry right now. But we definitely have to, what do you call it? We have to have a mindset where, even if the bear market goes on for another 6, 8, 12 months, there's also estimates it'll be even up to 24 months as well. We just have to look at the facts and see on the ground. The reality of it is that there's more people being made aware of it. There's more people investing in different ways, not necessarily monetarily, but time, labor. More people are being hired to build blockchains and different projects. There's going to be more clarity coming regarding regulation, and that there's a new market. There's exciting projects and different real world use cases coming up and some of the big superstars in the crypto industry has to be the stable coins, especially ones backed with commodities. And that's something that we're going to find over the course of this bear market, that a lot of the developments is backed by big names, but also the type of minds coming into the space. And it's a lot more mature, it's a lot more legitimate. Some of the scams, the ones that are dubious or have no, they're struggling to make the case and build pathways and build bridges that will allow increased adoption to happen for them and for the space. That's something we're going to continue to see that there's going to be different parties testing out different aspects of the technology, and this constant never-ending improvement is a hallmark of technology assets, and technology markets, where you're going to find that they're literally failing forward, and even during the bear market, that there's work, there's progress, there's advantages that they're finding. So with that being said, stay calm as always. Even if the bear market ends up being longer than predicted or forecasted, the key things to watch over and over again is, who's patenting what, who's collaborating with who, what projects are being developed to bridge that gap between the financial world and the crypto world, the other industries. Look out for any projects and infrastructure, anything that helps to make it easier. Literally, the way I see it visually is like creating bridges. So if there's more of that, that's going to, over time, this is going to help to increase the network effect of Bitcoin and other major projects that have real world use cases, and just keep aware of what's happening in the market in terms of developments. And at some point after the government shutdown as well has ended, we're going to be, hopefully, from what we're seeing, we're hopefully going to have a lot more clarity from the regulatory standpoint, and from my opinion as well, we're going to see more American states in particular develop and formulate their own policies on how to approach cryptos and blockchain technology. So with that being said, thank you guys for joining us. I hope you got value from that, and yeah, that's it from us today. Any final words, Yusuf?
No, you said it all. Did a great job. Thanks so much for sharing.
Thank you, and thank you for joining too. So peace out, guys. Have a fantastic week, and we'll see you on Friday. Take care.